Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. So, it's been 5 weekends now in the books with Solo: A Star Wars Story in theaters, and it is still losing theaters, but it isn't out of theaters yet. Of course, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom had to come out and take over some theaters and did very well, generally speaking. I guess it was in the high end of what the predictions were for it, 150 million for the weekend, which actually means that it did 50 million less than its predecessor, the original Jurassic World. So, yeah, 25% lower opening weekend compared to the first one. Well, gee, I wonder where we've seen that happen before. But that's more, Force Awakens Last Jedi kind of talk. It's not exactly Solo talk, which is what we're really here to do. So, in its fifth weekend, Solo made a little more than $4 million at the domestic box office, which means that, ta-da, it's cracked 200 million domestically, and it's also cracked 150 million in the worldwide sector, as in not including the North American sector. So we are at 350 million in total. And something happened this week that hadn't happened yet, which is a little bit of a bummer, but hey, what are you going to do? So Solo dropped to 6th place in the top 10, and this is the first weekend that Deadpool actually beat Solo at the box office. Solo was in 6th place, Deadpool 5th, and then it was Tag, Ocean's 8, Incredibles 2, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in the top spot. So the number that we're looking for next is 209 million, and the reason why that number, it's because that's the number of the original release of The Empire Strikes Back, not adjusted for inflation or anything like that. That just gets confusing for all intents and purposes. But anyway, if it can pass by that, then it will not be the lowest grossing Star Wars movie of all time. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It looks like we've got until September to make 9 million, so I think that's going to be an easy enough push. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it is going to get into the black. It seems like it is just going to be a money losing movie, unfortunately. But hey, considering that the 3 movies previous were all huge moneymakers for Lucasfilm, I don't think anybody's really shedding much in the way of tears as far as that goes. I mean, I am a little bit because I liked the movie. It was good. I wanted to see it do better. It's too bad, but what are you gonna do? So, interestingly enough, now that we have news of Disney moving forward with the purchase of Fox and all their movies, some of the things that have been under consideration as far as Star Wars movie releases is the fact that Disney is kind of competing with itself now on a large scale. And not directly in the sense that, yeah, maybe the same audience for, say, Mary Poppins Returns is not the same audience as the audience for Solo: A Star Wars Story. But the point of it is that Disney only has, so many weekends in a year, and between their own movies and the Pixar movies and the Star Wars movies and the Marvel movies, and then, hey, we're going to have Indiana Jones movies at some point too. I mean, there's only so many weekends in a year, and there's only so much of a promotional push that they can put behind all of their movies, especially when they have other movies to be marketing. I mean, they had Infinity War, and it was a month later that Solo came out, and then 2 weeks later, The Incredibles 2 came out. So, they have reason to be concerned that essentially they're competing for the same audience in some cases, and so they can't hammer the marketing as hard as they would. The thing that I don't necessarily have the greatest handle on yet, and I'd be really curious to hear some insight from movie industry veterans or anything like this, is with Lucasfilm operating as a company underneath the giant Disney umbrella, how much does Lucasfilm really call the shots as far as their own marketing dollars, their own budget, any of this stuff? I mean, do they get to act utterly and completely independently, and can they throw as much money at Solo as they want, or are they having to ask Disney for, the chance to go into the purse and loosen up the strings and throw some more money at things? I imagine Solo, with the loss of Lord and Miller, was a bit of a special circumstance in bringing Ron Howard in to do the reshoots and all that. But really, I'd be very curious to know. And it looks like, I mean, next year we're going to get that December slot back. It's being held by Mary Poppins for this year, but Star Wars is going to get to be back in the December slot. And man, when we were talking about The Last Jedi and Rogue One before it and The Force Awakens before that, we weren't really talking about other movies that were coming out and doing damage in their own way to the box office fortunes of those three previous Star Wars movies. I guess Jumanji and The Greatest Showman actually put a dent in The Last Jedi, but yeah, it's definitely a different and unusual situation, comparatively speaking, for Solo: A Star Wars Story, and it wasn't helped by being in Memorial Day and by having all the other movies coming out right before it, whether it was Infinity War or Deadpool 2 or The Incredibles 2 coming out after it, and now Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom hitting theaters. Yeah, it's been a very strange trip for Solo: A Star Wars Story, unfortunately. But that is going to do it for our Scoundrel Business look at Solo: A Star Wars Story and its performance now that we are in its fifth weekend, or just at the end of its fifth weekend in theaters. Hey, if you're still going to check it out, then drop a comment and let me know. I just want to hear if you are still finding time to see Solo while it's still in theaters. And I'm going to do Last Jedi trivia on the audio version of the podcast at sw7x7.com/iTunes, so do check that out. In fact, we have a corrections department note for today's episode to do, so do check that out as well. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.